All right, so I hope you guys are ready for the most advanced lecture of this entire series, which is brain health and genetics. So I did my best to make this as simple as possible, but let's be real, the brain is complex and you can take it a lot of different directions. I decided for you guys that I would base this most around things that you find on your genetics test because there are at least 6 genes, if not more, that are involved in brain health on the genetics test that can be kind of confusing just to try to cover in, our 1 hour visit that goes over the genetics. So this is going to be a whole hour dedicated to just those genes that have to do with brain health. And then we'll touch on a few other topics, but a lot of what helps the brain are things that we have already been working on, right? You have our anti-inflammatory diet. We've talked a little bit about grain brain, about how keto and fats help the brain, about how the gut and the brain are highly intertwined and how healing the gut helps to fortify the brain and helps to make things like serotonin and dopamine and a lot of these healthy brain hormones that we're going to get into today are made in the gut, right? So we've definitely been working on brain health inadvertently already. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that, your brain fog has probably gotten better, or your cognition or your sleep or your energy have changed just from working on the dietary portions of this program. But today we're going to really dive deep and get into some nitty-gritty, more advanced topics that have to do with balancing the brain. So first and foremost, the brain is an extremely fatty organ. It is about 60% fat. It is mostly cholesterol, actually, because anytime we're talking about like nerve health, your nerves are coated in a healthy fatty layer that helps protect them, and it helps with communications and sending signals down the axons and everything. So we do need fat for our brain to be healthy. Anytime we get into too low fat of a diet, a lot of times our brain will suffer because it is not well fortified, and you will have more brain fog and you'll have harder time remembering things and just less snappy cognition, if you will. It's something a lot of people notice if their cholesterol gets too low. For example, if your cholesterol gets below 150 for the total, you will usually start to notice that your brain stops working as well. I know my dad at one point was like refusing to take his cholesterol meds because he felt like he couldn't work. He's a high volume dentist and he just felt like he couldn't have the mental acuity required to see as many patients a day when his cholesterol was driven too low. And I have that complaint a lot from patients if they get their cholesterol under 150. So your brain requires fat to function, and therefore a lot of the higher fat diets are what helps to fortify the brain. So ketogenic diet, for example, I think of as like a brain cleanse. Ketogenic diet really helps to like balance your neurotransmitters, which are, the signals that your body sends to communicate with the brain. It really helps with, bringing inflammation down, which is again something that I know a lot of you guys have experienced already, and it can be very protective against Alzheimer's. Keto has a lot of implications with treating like brain-based disorders. Like there's a lot of research going into it treating anxiety and depression because there's been a lot of anecdotal evidence to say that keto helps with those things. It has been used to help with combating seizures, especially in children. Keto used to be the standard for treatment for childhood seizures before they came out with seizure medication. So ketogenic diet really helps with a lot of different brain factors. Just a little bit of a refresher on what keto is in case you guys forgot. Keto means that you're eating probably 70% of your daily calories from fat. It's very low carb, usually less than 50 grams a day. Honestly, some people have to get less than 20 grams a day. Just depends on your body size and athletics. Intermittent fasting is usually a big part of it because when you're eating higher fat, you can go longer times without eating. And most of the plant foods that are allowed are going to be your green vegetables, nuts, and avocado, because most of the rest of what you're going to be eating is going to be meat and dairy. This is like a short cheat sheet on what you can and cannot have. It is low in, fruit, no grains, very low or no potatoes, and no added sweeteners, because all of those things are going to kick you over that 50 grams of carbs too quickly. Most of your diet is going to be meat, leafy greens, high fat dairy, some nuts and seeds, that type of thing. And this is another reason why this diet is great if you're having like grain brain type symptoms, is because it does eliminate the grains that cause a lot of those negative brain-based issues. So what if your genetics on that AdipoQ test says that ketogenic is not the right diet for you? So let's say like you do not tolerate high fat very well. Don't worry, you can still eat a healthy amount of fat for your body. I was laughing because as I was creating this lecture, I ran across this blue slide here, which is from a book called The Sugar Brain Fix, where this guy actually tried to like mesh together the keto and Mediterranean diet as being the best diet for the brain. So even if you can't go full keto, you can still concentrate on healthier fats that are allowed on a Mediterranean diet. So a lot of these pictures here are monounsaturated fatty acids. That's what the MUFA stands for. And monounsaturated fatty acids are easier to tolerate for those of you that are low fat genetics. So you can concentrate on a lot of these foods to still fortify your brain with healthy fats without overdoing it on the saturated fat and things that can overstimulate that AdipoQ gene. Another fun fact just on a lot of these MUFA healthy fats in general is these are also fat burning fats, the kind of fats that help like slim your waistline. So they're always good fats to concentrate on, whether you're a keto person or a Mediterranean person. Okay. So as I said earlier, ketosis is good for things like epilepsy because it helps to reduce seizures. It has a lot of implications for helping to treat Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Because ketones are a source of energy for the brain can either use sugar for energy or it can use ketones. Those are like the two different options, right? So if you go on a no sugar or low sugar diet, your body is going to start to produce ketones to use for brain fuel instead. Ketones are kind of like a cleaner fuel for your brain. That's why they make people feel uber focused and just like things are, again, more snappy, less brain fog, is because ketones burn so cleanly as opposed to sugar. And they're a more usable form of energy for the brain. So the brain actually prefers ketones to sugar. So it really does help with just overall feeling better and more productive brain-wise. So yeah, how ketones work to improve brain function. They reduce inflammation. A lot of the reduced inflammation is from less sugar. It can improve your gut, especially if you have SIBO, which is the small intestine bacterial overgrowth. Ketosis and keto diet can be very beneficial to get rid of that, because SIBO is one of the main things that causes the grain brain, like the brain fog, the, just overall crappy feeling in the brain when your gut's not working very well, is a lot of times caused by the SIBO, and ketosis really helps. Like I said already, it's going to help with blood sugar balance. And then, yeah, it just increases energy to the brain and helps boost your neurotransmitters, because you're usually eating pretty high protein when you're eating a ketogenic diet as well. So this is kind of like a Dr. Rachel thing, but some of my colleagues and I call sugar like the brain caramelizer, because if your blood sugar, like your A1C, gets over, let's say it gets over like an 8, then it's almost like the excess sugar in your body starts to caramelize things and just makes them not work. It makes things super sticky, sludgy, like they just don't work as fast, if you want to think of it that way. And that's how too much sugar over time can affect the brain. It also is going to damage your blood flow. Decreased blood flow to the brain is obviously going to make brain fog and make things just not work as well. And then your brain starts to shrink because it doesn't get as much blood flow to it. And a lot of times that causes those Alzheimer, dementia type things. There's something called vascular dementia, where like lack of blood flow to the brain causes it to not work. And that happens a lot if we're on these like high sugar, high carb standard American diets. And ketosis would be the opposite of that. If you want to do further reading, I do like to suggest books. So these are some books on, grain brain, and just really dives deep into how, grains do negatively affect the brain and cause the Alzheimer's and dementia. But like I said, we've already been addressing a lot of these things with our leaky gut diets earlier in the program. So into genetics fun. So these are the different genes that are associated with brain health. Okay, so I said the AdipoQ is the one that I already mentioned with fat metabolism. That's the one where it's going to say low fat diet recommended. If you're unable to process fats properly, which is where I said you're going to have to do that Mediterranean diet with a high focus on the MUFAs. We're going to get into omega metabolism, methylation, choline, dopamine, and serotonin balance throughout this lecture. All right, so what is choline? So choline is similar to what I said about the brain being coated with fat to protect it. That is what choline does to the cell. So choline is what helps to create that fatty, phospholipid bilayers and kind of hooks things together nicely so that the cell has this nice protected, strong shape. When we don't have enough choline, the outside of the cell gets compromised and it's weak, it's weakened. And the fact that that cell is weakened, it makes us more susceptible to pain. So a lot of times I call choline like the precursor for fibromyalgia, because if people are low on choline, like they almost always get fibromyalgia because their cell is just not sustained enough. So they end up having pain everywhere because their cells are weak. And when your brain thinks that something is weak, it makes it painful because it wants you to be careful of that area because it doesn't think that that area is strong enough to withstand trauma, right? So choline is very important for just like the strength of our cells. And, in that, it also helps with some of these other factors, right? So it's going to help with heart health. It's going to help with liver. It's going to help, build neurons in the brain. Since it helps with the brain, it helps build baby's brain, especially during pregnancy. Pregnancy makes you a lot more dependent on choline than even any other time in your life because you're literally building another brain. That's how choline is so important to brain and memory, especially when you're producing a child or you're feeding a child with breastfeeding. You really do need a lot of choline. And choline is also a very powerful, just like anti-aging nutrient in general, because it is so protective of the brain and of memory. But yes, it also has a lot of implications with treating like fatty liver disease as well, because it helps immensely with liver repair. So anybody with fatty liver should be taking choline because choline helps to almost like detox fat from the liver. Choline can help with improving cholesterol. It can help with fertility for males and for females. But deficiency, like I said, can lead to a lot of neurological issues where, you can't remember things as well. It ages people faster. It can lead to like Parkinson's, like things where you have lack of coordination of your movements or maybe shaking. Fatigue definitely can lead to constipation because it can clog up your liver and gallbladder and keep things from flowing properly in that area. And it is also one of the causes for cardiac arrhythmias. You do need like 500 at least milligrams of choline a day, which is easy to get if you're eating like eggs and beef and that sort of thing. It's much more difficult if you're following a vegetarian or a vegan diet. Then you really are going to have to focus on the things like the green peas and the pumpkin seeds and some other nuts in order to get the choline. It's a lot easier to get it from meat. So you'll see on your genetics, the choline is the PEMT gene. And yeah, we already said everything on here for what it does. So there are multiple types of choline supplements on the market. And I like to say like each choline is maybe specific for different areas of the body. So like if you're taking alpha GPC, that one's going to be mostly for brain and focus and like studying and learning, right? Whereas phosphatidylcholine is going to be more so for the liver. So like I put on here that these are the different types and there are different things that they are the best for. But the reality is no matter what form of choline you're eating, your body has the ability to turn it into whatever kind it needs. So if you eat regular choline, your body can produce it into phosphatidylcholine, that type of thing. But if your genetics are super, super loaded for being bad at choline, I'd probably just go straight to the phosphatidylcholine. That's going to be best for methylation, but really any of these, you're going to notice a difference when you take them, especially on cognition. So these are just examples of the ones that we have in our store. The pro for like the choline bitters is actually helps you avoid soy, because a lot of choline, the way that they put it in supplements is it is made from soy, because just soy is a cheaper source to get the choline from to make the supplements. So if you see the word like soy lecithin, that's a lot of times how you get choline from vegetarian sources. There's not a lot of choline supplements that are made from like beef and eggs, for example. So that's kind of just the unfortunate reality with these things. But definitely the alpha GPC, like I said, is really going to help with brain and focus and studying. The betaine anhydrous has become very popular as like an anti-aging supplement, which, like I said, choline really in general is an anti-aging supplement just because it helps protect the brain so much, regardless of which form you're taking. All right, so alpha GPC is a type of nootropic. So the word nootropic is gaining popularity in the supplement industry these days. And what does that mean? Nootropic is anything that amplifies your brain function. So they're nicknamed like the smart drugs because they help with human thinking, learning, and memory, definitely help with focus. I think that they're a huge area for kids struggling in school and struggling with attention disorders. Nootropics could be a very powerful area to investigate if you're looking to, help your kids without prescription medications. But I just took a picture of the Master Brain AM as an example because it contains so many different nootropics, and a lot of these, brain-based, focus-based supplements do have multiple, but you can see this one has the alpha GPC. It has phosphatidylserine, which is a great one that blocks the brain from stress. Bacopa is awesome. Acetyl L-carnitine. And then it's going to have some of the mushrooms like the cordyceps and the L-euthro, if I'm even saying that correctly. But a lot of mushrooms are noted as nootropics these days because they help so much with brain and focus. So in case you hear the word nootropic, that's what it is. All right, so when we get into brain supplements, don't worry, this is not the only slide we're going to have on brain supplements. There's a lot of different areas, but like how we organize our brain supplement shelf at our supplement store is you have half of them that turn the brain up and half that turn the brain down. So the half that turn the brain up are on the left, the half that turn it down are on the right. So if you're having trouble with anxiety and things being like amped up too much, you obviously usually want to focus on the list on the right. Whereas if you're focusing on, oh, I have no energy in the morning, I just feel kind of dead, I just like don't have any drive or any get up and go, and I have no focus, then you might want to focus on this list on the left. Or maybe you need the list on the left in the morning and the list on the right in the evening. That's also completely possible. Okay, so let's get into omega genetics. So omegas are fish oil, right? So it's, where we talk about salmon and we talk about sardines and, like Northern Atlantic fish and all these things where you can get your healthy fats from. Omegas are definitely going to help with brain health. They have a lot of research, especially for balancing depression. And on your genetics test, you'll notice that some of them will say low risk, some will say moderate risk, some will say high risk. If you are a low risk person, you can probably get enough from food, or you can get enough just from a low dose, grocery store level omega. If you are high risk, you're definitely not going to be able to get enough from like a grocery store level omega, you're gonna need a doctor grade omega because you're gonna need to get probably 4,000 milligrams a day to balance your heart and brain health, and you're gonna have to almost, we're gonna call that like a prescription level where you have to be getting it from somewhere like my office to have something strong enough to balance that out. So I took a picture of the back of two different brands of omegas, right? So like the omega on the left is like a $60 omega. The omega on the right is like a $15 omega, okay? They both say that they have 2,000 milligrams. However, you'll notice when you look at the EPA and DHA that there's a huge difference, right? So the one on the left has like 1,100 of EPA. This one has 388. The one on the left has 875 of DHA and 240 on the right. This is important because, DHA is especially important for brain health, and you want to have higher doses if you're taking omegas, especially for, brain protection or heart health or depression balancing type things. You want the DHA to be high. And so you're going to have to look at the label and see, okay, is there 800 or is there 200? Because there's obviously a big difference in those two dosages, even though they both say they're 2,000 milligram doses of omega. So there is a difference in what you're buying. It is a huge difference in the price because of the ratios of these two nutrients. So this is a quote from the National Institute of Health from like a meta study that they did. And what that means is they took like hundreds of articles about omegas and they tried to like summarize it into a few sentences on like what the findings of all these studies were. So the studies confirmed that omega-3 helps with learning, memory, cognitive well-being, blood flow to the brain, all those things that are very important, like I said, for longevity and for brain health. Omega-3 helps with all of them. They're also very low risk. They help with balancing depression, especially with people that are like lonely. It's great if you can get it from salmon and from naturally occurring foods like eggs and grass-fed beef and these types of things. But a lot of times, if you need the higher doses, like I said, you are going to have to get it from supplement. The FDA even recommends 3,000 milligrams of omega-3 daily, with supplements being like up to 2,000 milligrams of that. So sometimes supplements are required to get the daily allowance unless you really, really like salmon and eggs. So these are the different foods that you can get the DHA part of omegas. Like I said, DHA is the kind that's more brain specific. Most of these you're going to notice are going to be cold water fish. And the yellow part of eggs and grass-fed ground beef are going to be the main ways that we can get the DHA.
You need to bag it all. Okay. So then she has.
And then, yeah, just for omega-3 rich foods in general, this is like not DHA specific. This is just omegas, period. Obviously, there are some plant sources like flaxseed and walnut. I actually encourage buying the oils of these just so it's easier on your digestive tract. But walnut oil, for example, is going to be the second highest omega-3 content compared to fish oil. All right, now we're going to get into B vitamins. As you guys notice on your genetics, there are 3 different pages on B vitamins because they go into B6, B2, B9, B12. So almost the full spectrum of B vitamins are tested on this genetic test. But like low levels of any B vitamin is linked to depression because B vitamins are so necessary for the brain to create these neurotransmitters or for the gut to create these neurotransmitters that we need to be mentally healthy. B vitamin depletion also can cause dementia. Definitely required for detoxing adrenaline, for balancing out anxiety. So B vitamins are just required for a lot of different anxiety, depression type balance in the body for sure. And let's be real, they also help with blood flow. B vitamins are, omegas and B vitamins are the top 2 required supplements for heart health. They're also the top 2 required supplements for brain health. They definitely go hand in hand. All right, so MTHFR genetics. So this is the most popular genetics test. You know, it's in your guys' packets, but even a lot of medical doctors will order this because it is so important for heart health, especially because MTHFR has a lot to do with something on your blood work called homocysteine. So homocysteine on your blood work is an inflammation marker that some doctors will draw. It's something that, you know, you can go to any lab test now, which is the lab that I use, and they'll just run it for you if you ask. But if your homocysteine levels is high, it means that you do not have enough B9 or B12 to control it. And homocysteine being high is a huge, huge marker for heart health and brain health and just overall blood flow being compromised. So we want this homocysteine level to be within normal ranges in order to keep healthy arteries. And the MTHFR gene is important when we're considering that, because if you have those super high risk genes on your genetics test report of findings, you're going to need to take like very large doses of the B9 and B12 to keep that homocysteine in check. But yeah, your MTHFR also helps you detox other hormones like estrogen, and it helps you detox histamine, also helps you create new healthy DNA strands. All right, so common things that you might experience if your MTHFR is, we'll say, acting up and causing maybe your homocysteine to be high and things are just not being well balanced detox wise. So you can experience alcohol intolerance where you get hungover immediately just from like, you know, one glass of alcohol. Same thing with medication intolerance. It can make you hypersensitive to different prescriptions. You can have trouble calming down, easily overstimulated, hypersensitive to different anesthetics and laughing gas. It will make you more predisposed to having clots. That can be clots in your arteries, clots in passing your menstrual cycle, or just overall like clotty blood, stagnant blood in general, which is not great for heart health. Definitely a predisposition for preeclampsia during pregnancy. Having abnormal pap smears consistently can be an indication that this needs to be balanced. So as you can see, there's just a lot of different areas of your body that are affected by the MTHFR because it is such a huge influence on blood flow, and every organ system in our body is influenced if our blood flow is not optimized. So yeah, again, the list goes on and on and on and on of all the different things that are affected by this gene, because like I said, you need blood flow to every organ system for it to function properly. So lifestyle modifications, if you have like moderate to high risk for the, you know, B9, B12 type deficiencies of your MTHFR genetics on your forms there. Eat your greens. Greens are going to help with giving your body the methyl donors that they need in order for this gene to work more optimally. Definitely make sure you're taking the active forms of B vitamins. Like B2 from beef liver is awesome, or methylfolate or methylcobalamin are things you're going to want to look for on like the B9 to B12 range to get this optimized. Avoid fortified grains, like avoid folic acid that's added to food, because folic acid can actually block your pathways for like the good form of B9 getting in. You know, buy cleaner foods, consider gluten and dairy free. A lot of these things that we've talked about nutrition wise, we're not going to go into again. But another thing is to amplify detox, because like I said, the MTHFR is what helps with detoxing a lot of different hormones and histamine and just other like nasty byproducts. So anything that makes you sweat, like going in the sauna, can actually help this work better. Coffee enemas helps to detox things better, different supplements, like magnesium and greens and the aforementioned B vitamins. So the plus sides of having a, you know, high risk MTHFR is they usually produce a human that has better focus, motivation, productivity, and alertness, and like amplified DNA repair, which those are like the fun parts, because obviously we just went over like 8 million negative parts to having high risk genes in this area. So supplements that are going to help with this the most, it's going to be methylfolate, like I said, which is going to look something like this. If you look at a nutrition label, we put methylfolate in our daily dose multivitamin. We also put methylcobalamin, which is like the good form of B12 in it. This company, Designs for Health, has really good multivitamins and B vitamins as well that are the methylated forms of these B vitamins to help with the MTHFR gene. And the program that you guys already went through, the Whole Body Cleanse program, also very high in these methylation donors to help balance that MTHFR gene as well. Okay, so in case you're not already confused about MTHFR helping with detox, as we said, MTHFR helps to detox a lot of hormones and, brain chemicals. It can help you with balancing anxiety and depression, but we're also going to get into two more genes that help with detoxing brain hormones as well. So MTHFR, MAOA, and COMT are all three genes that have to do with balancing anxiety and depression, because all three of these are going to help with detoxing stress hormones. And if you are not able to detox stress hormones efficiently, they overwhelm the system and cause anxiety, or a lot of times if you detox stress hormones too quickly, it will cause depression. So that's where we're getting into with this slide. So the slow MAOA COMT means that your enzyme is too slow, that you cannot detox these hormones fast enough. And that makes people very hyperstimulated, which is great because you get a lot done, but it also produces workaholics and difficulty falling asleep. Whereas, like I said, on the right side of this, if you are a fast MAOA, fast COMT person, it means that you detox hormones and especially stress hormones too quickly. So it can lead to like low energy, struggle focusing, motivation issues, and moodiness. It can also help make you detox things like melatonin and serotonin too quickly, so you have difficulty staying asleep. So let's dive into these two genes more, because this is where things can get pretty confusing. I want to really try to dig deep on these for you guys. All right, so on this slide, like I said, we kind of bunched like dopamine, serotonin, and our different stress neurotransmitters kind of like all into one bundle, but like let's go into each one of these does. So what dopamine does is it is your motivation hormone. So it's what kind of gets you up and gets you going. Unfortunately, or fortunately speaking, dopamine also kind of gives you a high, it gives you a rush, so it can make you addicted to certain things like social media, which we're going to get into. But we do want dopamine to be present in order to stay motivated and stay productive, but we don't want to like overly abuse it, because it can get desensitized, kind of like we've talked about. Insulin can get desensitized, and cortisol. Dopamine is also one of those things that you can overdrive it to a point where it's almost like your body doesn't recognize it anymore, and that becomes a problem too. But dopamine is involved in controlling movement. That's why it's a very important player in like Parkinson's disease. It's huge for our reward system, which like makes us want to keep doing things and stay motivated to do things. Helps with balancing our mood, as far as like antidepressant type things goes, and it helps with making us feel alert in the morning and keeping a healthy sleep schedule. So there's a lot we're going to get into on dopamine genetics, but I did just want to mention that outside of genetics, we tend to abuse our dopamine systems, in this decade because of instant gratification, especially from computers and social media. Anytime that you're, scrolling and you're going for like the likes, or you're going for notifications, or, seeing the next reel or whatever, you are constantly stimulating dopamine, and you can create dopamine issues that look like your genetics are bad because you've just been abusing it with modern technological addictive issues. So we're gonna put on here like cheap dopamine is those things that create that like instant gratification that can really like deplete your dopamine and make it almost like exhausted long term. So being addicted to social media, drugs, gambling, junk food, alcohol, TV series, those types of things, we get really involved in these type of activities and then we wonder why we have no motivation, we can't get up in the morning, we don't have a drive for our normal activities. It's because our dopamine got abused with all these cheap ones. Whereas, we really need the dopamine to, be productive in our lives. So like good healthy dopamine release is from like reaching your goals or like getting outdoors or creating new experiences or, exercise or getting proper rest. Those types of things, can help with a good dopamine response. But like I said, similar to how we can eat too much sugar, it's like we can overstimulate dopamine. So we really want to avoid, as much of these cheap dopamine stressors as we can. So similar to how we give up sugar to resensitize insulin, we can give up addictive behaviors to resensitize dopamine. So like we said back when we were talking about blood sugar, say, okay, if we go keto, we give up sugar for a while and then we can make our insulin start working again. A lot of times in order to get dopamine to start working again, we have to give up these cheap dopamine activities for certain periods of time. And then you can like kind of resensitize that hormone to start working again. All right, so into the genetics part. So your COMT gene is a lot of what controls dopamine balance in the body. COMT helps us detox either dopamine, estrogen, or adrenaline is what we're gonna kind of pack these into to make it simpler. So ideally, you have these hormones, COMT methylates them, which again is why the MTHFR gene is so important, and to have those good forms of B9 and B12 so that this gene will also work. And then the inactive form of these hormones ideally gets, pure pooped out so that your body can make new ones. Unfortunately, if this enzyme is being slow, we can overaccumulate things like bad estrogen, and overaccumulating estrogen leads to a lot of, unfortunately, cancers and honestly, just a lot of feminine issues like PCOS can become an issue or endometriosis can become an issue if we just have this overabundance of estrogen in the system. So we do want our COMT gene to work properly in order to detox the estrogen, but yes, also to detox dopamine and adrenaline so that we're not getting overstimulated. But as you can see on here, a lot of the vitamins that help is going to be those B vitamins that we've already started mentioning earlier. Okie dokie. So COMT gene not working as fast as possible also helps it contributes with chronic pain because you have this overabundance of estrogen, of dopamine, of these stress hormones, and any overabundance of stress hormones is not great for your joints. It definitely can cause issues with back pain, fibromyalgia, TMJ, like IBS. A lot of these chronic pain conditions are attributed to not a good enough detox because of this gene. All right, so now what if your genetic says that it is moving too fast? If your genetic says it's moving too fast, it means that you are going to get depleted of dopamine, depleted of hormones, or depleted of adrenaline. So if you don't have enough adrenaline and dopamine, you will be a calmer person, which is great because you can deal with stress better. You'll have a higher pain tolerance, but you're also going to be easily addicted to things like caffeine, alcohol, shopping, gambling, a lot of these things that help to try to like boost the dopamine because your body's going to be like, ooh, I feel really good when I actually get that little dopamine hit because I'm usually really low. So yeah, it's tricky because all these genes, they all have, the positive and the negative of them, which obviously evolutionarily speaking, some of these things were advantageous to get passed down. It's just that unfortunately there's negative side effects to some of the better components, right? So I tried to give you guys good and bad traits that come along with each one of these. So the low COMT tends to be the worrier gene, whereas the high COMT or the fast COMT tends to be the warrior gene. And like I said, the pros and cons to each one because of what it does to your hormone balance. All right, so how do we treat each side of these? So if you have the low COMT, like I said, you're gonna have an overaccumulation of a lot of these hormones, so we need to help detox them. So to help detox these excess hormones, we have exercise, sweat, Epsom salt baths, vacation, resting, meditating, avoiding overly estrogenic food, avoid a lot of plastics or the other estrogenic type products that we talked about in the liver chapter. Supplements such as green tea, DIM, or calcium deglucarate can help with estrogen detox, or magnesium and greens can just help with speeding up this gene in general. If you are on the too high side, where your body burns through these hormones too quickly, hugs really help boost dopamine, high protein diet. We're going to go into some dopamine boosting supplements. Caffeine and chocolate can actually be somewhat helpful, and then high tyrosine foods. Tyrosine is an amino acid that helps to make dopamine, so boosting some of these foods actually really helps to amplify production of dopamine if you're low. So these are examples of just some of the supplements that we have in our store that can help with balancing out either the fast or the slow side of these genetics. Greens is kind of in the middle because greens honestly just helps balance both. But you can see for the fast ones, which are people that have too low of dopamine, there are supplement called Dopatone, which literally just has all the amino acids and required nutrients for your body to create Dopatone or dopamine. Tyrosine helps create dopamine. A lot of these nootropic focus type, powders, even a lot of pre-workouts have tyrosine. And then honestly, just taking like a protein powder in general can help to boost tyrosine in the body, which helps make more dopamine. These are important supplements for, especially for ADD, ADHD type issues where we need to like improve focus. If your kids especially have this gene and they're having trouble with school or having trouble with focus, taking a tyrosine product can really, really help. As opposed to, so like the flip side, where this gene is working too slow and we're getting too much adrenaline and, too much estrogen, the DIM really helps with estrogen balance. Greens can really help with detoxing anything. And magnesium can also help with calming things down as well for that side. All right, so then we get into the MOA gene. So the MOA gene is more serotonin based, but it is still going to help with detox of, epinephrine or adrenaline. Like I said, it's going to help with detox of serotonin and help with detox of dopamine. So like all of these brain ones, like I said, between the COMT, the MAOA, and the MTHFR are all very, very tightly intertwined. And you notice that even the supplements that are required and lifestyle modifications that are required to balance a lot of these really go hand in hand because, if your body thinks that something is important, it always has a backup, right? So if it's like, oh, we need MAOA to detox, adrenaline. Well, what if the MOA doesn't work? Okay, well, then we have COMT as a backup, or maybe we have MTHFR as a backup. Like there's always a backup mechanism to try to balance things out, so you might have multiple of these genes and really not have any symptoms, but it's because your backup systems are probably working. Your backup systems a lot of times can only work so long before they get burnt out. So we still want to, optimize these genes as much as we can to have longevity and have our brain work as we age, right? So anywho, serotonin is your happy hormone. That is the hormone that is focused on the most with antidepressant medications, is like how to keep serotonin around longer or how to boost serotonin. So MAOA balance is going to help a lot with balancing that happy hormone. So let's get into like the highs and lows and what the different ones go with. So if you have low MAOA, meaning that you are not detoxing serotonin, dopamine, and adrenaline fast enough, you will experience mood swings, annoyance, volatile sleeping, heart palpitations, excessive shivering, stress-induced gray hair, anxiety, restlessness. It really is a big trigger for people having impulsiveness or like rage and aggression issues. Sometimes IBS or fast bowels, headaches. The good things are that it gives you tremendous energy, self-confidence, very productive, generally like a happy, high-functioning person. It's just that you have a huge tendency to get overdone because you cannot detox, adrenaline and serotonin fast enough. And since serotonin does not get detoxed fast enough, a lot of times we have melatonin issues and trouble falling asleep. Because melatonin is actually made from serotonin. So really in this little bubble graph here, it should just say serotonin / melatonin. Because they're really close to each other. And if you are on the high side of the MAOA, meaning that you detox these 3 hormones way too quickly, then it's going to make you more of a relaxed person, more easygoing. Unfortunately, some people might see you as kind of like flat or boring because you're so not overly stimulating. It can lead to carb and sugar cravings and a lot of addiction because like your body's chronically trying to bring up that serotonin production, and a lot of carbs and sugar give you serotonin and make you feel happy. So it's easy to overdo it on carbs and sugar if your serotonin is low. So definitely this is a huge one for if you feel like you can't avoid sugar. It might be because you're detoxing serotonin too quickly and your body's trying to depend on sugar to give you more serotonin and melatonin. But really like tryptophan is an amino acid that you're going to get from protein is, a better way of boosting this long term. So let's get into that. So like I said, if you're on that high side, tryptophan is a good supplement or something that you can get from food. Either one, or you can take melatonin as a supplement. Tryptophan you can get from a lot of like fermented foods or nuts, oatmeal. Milk is really high in it. I think that's why the warm glass of milk before bed became a popular, wives' tale type of thing, but it's because a glass of whole milk is really high in tryptophan, and which can really help people sleep because you need tryptophan to make melatonin, right? So a lot of time a bedtime snack of some of these foods actually will help with sleep for these individuals because these individuals will tend to, wake up in the middle of the night and during the day, a little bit of caffeine can actually help to boost it as well. If you're on the slow side for the MAOA, meaning that you can't get rid of, adrenaline and serotonin and dopamine quick enough, then boosting the methylfolate and the methylcobalamin and the greens and beef liver or B2 liver support, like the whole body cleanse, a lot of these things that we've already addressed are going to help with speeding this up. I know personally the thing that helps me the most is not eating a lot at night. I am on the low MAOA side of things, and if I eat a big dinner, I definitely notice that my sleep is not great. So eating a lot of times we'll just eat a protein shake for dinner, honestly. And I do feel like that really, really helps my sleep health with having this gene. And also magnesium, for sure, definitely really helps me with sleep for this as well. And then we have avoid chocolate, caffeine, alcohol, fermented and aged foods, just because a lot of these things are going to create, adrenaline, dopamine, serotonin, and make it harder for our body to detox them fast enough. So, supplement wise on here for the slow one, which like I said, is very similar to the MTHFR and very similar to the COMT, but we need the B9 methylfolate, we need the B12, magnesium, greens, all these things are going to help with detoxing those hormones. Whereas if you're on the fast side and you actually need more tryptophan, you can take 5-HTP, which is a tryptophan supplement. Things like the lights out, our lights out sleep support has, you know, magnesium and tryptophan in it. Serotonin is going to help produce serotonin, like I said, and then I just put a picture of kombucha on here just because a lot of the fermented foods are going to help with people that are on the fast side. I know like my husband is a fast MAOA person, and the amount of kombucha that he drinks sometimes is just ungodly, but he feels like it does really help with like balancing out, you know, his gut and his brain immensely with having that gene. All right, so a few of the other accessory genes on here that like are a little bit related to brain health, but I just wanted to touch on them just in case. So you have your glutathione gene, which is the GST-GPX gene on your report of findings. Glutathione is another one of those, we'll say, backup systems for detox. So it's going to really help with COMT, MAOA, MTHFR genes as far as the liver being able to detox used materials. But really how you know if your glutathione needs a boost is if you're super reactive to different chemicals, like if you get, you know, smell perfume, you get a migraine, or if you get a new laundry detergent, your skin breaks out, that usually means that your glutathione system is needing some help. But your glutathione system might need help because of those three other genes on here. It might not be that your glutathione gene is high risk. It might be that one of those other three is just not doing its job and your glutathione is trying to pick up the slack. Because yeah, like if you look on here for, you know, nutrients required for a healthy glutathione gene, you know, we have, you know, again, our B vitamins, we have whey protein, we have N-acetylcysteine, vitamin C, protein, yeah, like any type of amino powder. All these things are really going to help with detox with that gene. And so yeah, these are just pictures of some of the glutathione supplements that we carry. But I will say like glutathione supplements are very, very hard to absorb. So they're definitely one of those supplements that's kind of giving you expensive urine, if you want to think of it that way, because most of it is not going to be absorbed. It's way more effective to have your body make it. And that's where I prefer getting enough protein or like drinking a whey protein, because if you have protein in the body, your body makes glutathione. If you don't have enough protein, your body cannot make enough glutathione. And also, like I said, balancing out those other three brain detox genes so that your glutathione's not always trying to like pick up the slack from those. Another detox gene on here is going to be the HMNT, which is like your histamine intolerance gene. Like I said, a lot of histamine detox goes back to the MTHFR, which means that you might need like a B9, B12 support. But some other things that might help with histamine detox is going to be vitamin C, zinc, quercetin, stinging nettle, N-acetylcysteine, just digestive enzymes in general. If you are intolerant to a lot of histamine, you're going to want to avoid a lot of like cheese, alcohol, food dyes, especially like red and yellow, and peanuts. There are a lot of, you know, high and low histamine diets that you can download, but you'll notice that a lot of like the low histamine diets are very similar to like a SIBO type diet or a leaky gut type diet, because histamine is one of the things that gets overstimulated with leaky gut. And a lot of these leaky gut diets are already taking into account that histamine might be an issue. That's why most of them are going to be, you know, alcohol-free, cheese-free, food dye-free, peanut-free. Obviously, what we did the first 2 months is free of all of these things because of the histamine control part. But if you are hypersensitive to histamine, hopefully we've gotten past a lot of this already by fixing the gut first. But, you know, in case your genetics are just super strong on this one and it's still lingering, these are the foods that can trigger more histamine problems in the body. So you have foods that already have histamine in them, you know, like cheese has histamine in it, whether you're allergic to it or not, right? So you could not be allergic to cheese, but let's say your body has a hard time detoxing histamine because your MTHFR gene's not working or your histamine gene's not working very well. It can seem like you're allergic to cheese just because you're getting too much histamine in the body. And this is my best analogy for that. So let's say the cup is how much histamine your liver can handle. Okay. So if your liver is half full of histamine, then we have no symptoms. However, if histamine is overflowing, like on the cup on the right, then we literally get these overflowing symptoms, right? Where it's like coming out of our eyes, coming out of our ears, coming out of our guts type of a thing. All your stereotypical allergy type symptoms. So the key is we want to keep the cup from overflowing, right? So reducing a lot of these foods or eliminating some of these foods can help keep the cup half full and keep it from overflowing. Whereas if you look at this list and you're like, oh my gosh, 90% of my diet is on this page, that might be why things are overflowing and you're having a lot of allergy, like histamine type issues. And just to kind of go back a second, allergy medications are antihistamines, right? Because it helps us from having these histamine overloads in the body. But a lot of times, instead of taking an antihistamine, we could just reduce the amount of histamine that we are ingesting in general in order to balance our allergies. And I know, personally speaking, the thing that's not on this picture is outdoor allergies, right? So during the winter, when I don't have any outdoor allergy stimulation, I can drink wine and eat cheese and it's no problem. Whereas maybe during cottonwood season, I have to avoid wine and cheese because it's like my cup's already half full of cottonwood. I can't handle the food histamine, right? So you can definitely have like the outdoor components added to this as well that might make it so that you have food allergies certain times of the year, but maybe not other times of the year just because your cup's overflowing when the allergies outside are higher. So yeah, just something to consider. Like I said, hopefully by balancing the gut and finding like a good gut healthy diet, you don't have to concentrate on this as much. But if you are still feeling like you have a lot of allergy issues or you have allergy issues certain times of the year, this is something to consider, is that you just want to keep your cup half full on the allergy part. These are just some supplements that can help with allergy balance as well. They're going to help to make this HMNT gene work better. So we have beef organs, like beef kidney is especially high in something called a DAO enzyme, which is almost like an antihistamine enzyme. It helps break down histamine in the body so that it doesn't overaccumulate. The methylation type nutrients, like we've already talked about. Vitamin C, CQ is going to be zinc, vitamin C, and quercetin, which are three of the nutrients, like we said, that help with histamine detox. There are a lot of products that will say like D-Hist, O-Hist, or X, or Hista-Ease, or anything that has the word HIST in it means that it's trying to help with this gene with histamine detox. And then lastly, I always notice a big difference when I take the Neo 40 because the Neo 40 is very high in the B9, B12, and nitric oxide boosters, which increase blood flow to your nasal passages. So that has always been like a very powerful combination for me for balancing out anything happening in the nose area. So yeah, nitric oxide is also not to be forgotten because improving blood flow into these tiny little arteries in your nose and sinuses also can really help with balancing allergy symptoms. So I hope that helps with genetics. I know, I apologize, guys. It's like a super involved topic and, you could go deep dive into many books on it. If you want to read a book on it, there's a great one called Dirty Genes, where you can really deep dive into some of these genetics a little bit further, but hopefully this will help at least guide you guys to some of the diet, lifestyle, supplement things that you could add additional to what we've already covered through the rest of this program. Definitely feel free to email me any additional questions on genetics, because like I said, it is a very involved topic